Hey everyone, good evening. Thank you for joining me, Dorothea, through an Orthodox Christian lens. Tragedy happened today. 2, actually. School shooting in my state of Colorado. And I think there was 3 students involved. And then, of course, Charlie Kirk's assassination. So, I was out all day doing errands. Basically, not errands. I was actually taking my youngest son, for his every 3-year MRI, and then, to make sure that he doesn't have anything going on in his brain after he's a brain tumor survivor. We'll find out the results tomorrow. And then he had a 2-hour, which seemed odd, but a 2-hour, I didn't know this at the time because I was just sitting forever, but a 2-hour ophthalmology appointment. It's basically a checkup to see how his eyes are doing, considering everything on his left side, because the tumor he had as a child, an infant, and the child affected that area. It was in his cerebellum area and attached to his brain stem, and it affected his balance, it affected his swallowing, it affected his left eye, his left ear. So, for instance, he can't see well in his left eye. He can't close it all the way still. His left ear has severe hearing loss. But his tumor did miraculously go away in 2020, which was amazing. Anyway, I was sitting in the waiting room there while he was in with the eye doctor. And I decided to go into X, and, well, everything that was posted, my newsfeed was filled with what happened to Charlie Kirk. People were worried. This is when he had been shot, and they were very worried over him. And he was at a event at a university in Utah, where he was speaking in an outside venue near the university. I'm sure on the university grounds. And then I happened to see a video of a faraway view of him being shot, which was horrible. I don't do well with violence, but yeah, that came up, and it just seemed unreal, And then further down, there was another video that was even more devastating, which was a closer view of him being shot, which I don't think I'm going to forget really easily. That one was really upsetting. And I'm not really a follower of him. I mean, I heard of him. I knew he was instrumental in backing Trump during his campaign, before he won and after he won. He was around a lot, but I really didn't listen to him. It wasn't a podcast I followed. But anyway, so I was aware of who he was for the most part. And, well, it just seemed unbelievable. And once I saw that second shot, it was so horrible. I just felt so sorry for him. He didn't deserve this. Nobody deserves this. And I think about his beautiful family, his wife and his children, just little children, And he was only 31, so young. And I just think, I don't know who did this. He's still out there, but this country is very sick. it has this malaise over it that's really, really dark, with a bunch of hate and hate for people who disagree with you. You know, when I was growing up, that wasn't happening. When I was growing up, my dad used to watch 2 programs. I remember them pretty well. God rest his soul. He used to watch Crossfire. It's political discussion shows, and he used to watch The Capital Gang, another one, and it was a few Democrats and a few Republicans sitting together across from each other, arguing over their opinions on certain political issues. And there was never any vitriol. It was always, there was even some laughing at the time. It was like these people, they respected each other. And I even think they had a friendship because they talked so much. And I believe I remember hearing that they actually, after taping those shows, after they were done, they would actually go out to and eat, you know, like lunch or dinner together, or have cocktails or something. You know, there was a real camaraderie there, even though they had differing opinions. They respected that they had different opinions, and they appreciated it because it gave them something to exchange ideas and discussions with. That's not happening today, and it hasn't for the past 10, 15 years. It's just gotten worse. This has totally disappeared, this kind of discourse. And I think Charlie Kirk was trying to revive that in a way. Though from what I was listening to and for what he was doing, it sounds like he was trying to engage young people and discuss certain topics that are important to them and to him. And, you know, people disagreed, and that was fine. You know, that it was about real discussions, real discourse and talk, and trying to connect in a way with people in this manner, I think. So there's been a lot of stuff going around, you know, a lot of emotion online. A lot of it basically people feeling heartbroken, devastated, which I totally get. And so some people grieving, and also some bad things out there, but I'm not going to dwell on that or give that my attention. I don't think it's right. I think I will get into something on that in a minute. I want to share an article. Speaking of assassinations, I want to share this article with you in just a minute here. So here's Charlie Kirk with a young boy. I'll get into that story in a minute. I want to get into this assassination thing. Did you notice America has had 5 assassination attempts in a year? The U.S. is bearing witness to an alarming trend of politically motivated violence and high-profile assassination attempts. The United States has entered a disturbing cycle of political violence. In the past year alone, multiple high-profile assassination attempts have shaken the country. Here's a comprehensive list of the incidents. There's attacks on Donald Trump on July 13, 2024. Then presidential candidate Donald Trump narrowly survived an attempt on his life during a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. The attacker, 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks, fired multiple rounds, grazing Trump's ear, killing one rally attendee and injuring several others. The shooter was killed by a counter-sniper team that returned fire, though the incident was later branded foreseeable and preventable by a U.S. Senate inquiry. Just 2 months later, On September 15th, Trump was the target of another assassination attempt when a heavily armed pro-Ukraine shooter was spotted outside the U.S. president's golf course in West Palm Beach, Florida. The suspect, Ryan Ruth, was apprehended by the Secret Service and has since chosen to represent himself in court and challenged Trump to a game of golf. Okay, that's really odd. This man must be not well in the head. Minnesota House Speaker assassination. So the Minnesota Democratic leader Melissa Hortman and her husband were shot dead at their home on June 14, 2025. Local Senator John Hoffman and his wife were wounded in a related attack the same night and barely survived. The suspect, Vance Luther Bolter, I guess, a 57-year-old military experience with military experience and a past as a private contractor, was apprehended and taken into custody after a 2-day manhunt. Now, I did not know that's what his history was. All I do know is that it was one of the creepiest things and chilling things I'd ever seen is when he had that mask that made him look like a policeman. That was so creepy and chilling. Prosecutors claim Bolter planned and carried out the targeted political assassination and had a list of some 70 other targets, a plot the likes of which had never been seen in Minnesota. And then, here's Charlie Kirk. Conservative commentator and longtime supporter of Donald Trump, Charlie Kirk was assassinated on September 10, 2025, while delivering a speech at Utah Valley University. The right-wing activist was shot in his neck and succumbed to his injuries in hospital shortly after the attack. No details about the suspect's identity or possible motive have been released. On December 18, 2024, right-wing influencer Nick Fuentes said a man armed with a pistol, a crossbow, and incendiary devices showed up at his house in Berwyn, Illinois, while he was live streaming. The individual turned out to be a triple homicide suspect, who was shot and killed by police following a chase shortly after his encounter with Fuentes. Oh my goodness. It's really scary, you know? You always know there's these shootings going on around the country. And, you know, I can understand how people who aren't from this country are probably thinking, how safe is it to actually go out and do anything in this country? Because there's so many shootings, we think, oh, you know, these people must be afraid to go out of their houses. And, you know, as American, I think we're kind of desensitized to all this. We just think, okay, well, it won't happen to us, or it just doesn't come into our head that much. So, like, I have to say, after what's been happening, especially with what happened today with Charlie Kirk, you know, you really start worrying even more that perhaps I'll be a bit more wary when I'm out in public places, you know, about what's going on. So just wanted to share that, and then I'm going to also share this, as I said, this our country is in a terrible malaise of such hate and evil, and it's just terrible. It's a sick nation. It needs to heal, needs to repent, it needs to let go of the hatred. And so I'm going to share with you a few things that St. Paisios said. So he's talking about prayer and love to, you know, pain to the heart and all that. I'm just going to read his quotes, and, you know, this part here, this whole section, because it's important. Elder, and they're called elder back then, but it's St. Paisios, on pain of heart. St. Paisios tells us that for love to blossom in the heart, we must pray with pain of heart. Once he was asked, we pray, elder, and our thoughts go here and there. Yeah, that's true. Why? He says, because it is prayer without pain. To pray with the heart, we must hurt. Just as when we hit our hand or some other part of our body, our mind, nous, is gathered to the point we are hurting. So also for the mind to gather in the heart must hurt. The saint was then asked, how can we preserve ourselves in this state when we don't have some problem, some pain? He said, we should make the other's pain our own. We must love the other, must hurt for him, so that we can pray for him. We must come out little by little from our own self and begin to love, to hurt for other people as well, for our family first, then for the large family of Adam, then for the large family of Adam of God. At another time he said, the more one hurts, the more divine consolation one receives, because otherwise it is not possible to stand the pain. God especially consoles those who hurt for others. And then he ends with this. To some people, your love will be expressed with joy, and to others it will be expressed with your pain. You will consider everyone your brother or your sister, for we all are children of Eve, of the larger family of Adam of God. Then in your prayer you will say, my God, help those first who are in greater need, whether they are alive or reposed, brothers in the Lord, or sisters, of course. At that point, you will share your heart with the whole world, and you will have nothing but immense love, which is Christ. The Saint Paisius has also said in many of his things that I've read is, we can't allow our hearts to grow cold. We can't allow our hearts to grow cold, which he means to harden our hearts against our neighbors, and our fellow human beings, because that's the most important thing we need to remember in this. No matter what you feel about somebody, that you disagree with them strongly or whatever, they're still made in God's image, and they are our neighbor. And God commands us that we love him and love our neighbor. And we really need to keep that in mind, because once the heart is hardened or cold, it's almost impossible to get back any warmth and seeing people as we should, with empathy and love. I'm going to end with this post here that I did. I copied over on X that I showed you at the beginning. So this is what Chandler Crump said, this young boy at the time. I attended Turning Point USA's Young Black Leadership Summit in October 2018. I was 14 at the time, but Charlie told me it didn't matter how young I was, I could fight alongside him in this movement. From then on, I attended every Turning Point conference every year from 2018 to 25. I grew up in this movement. I became the person I am today because of the inspiration from Charlie Kirk and his organization. I will never be the same without him, and this country will never be the same either. He was a husband, a father, a man of God, and a visionary for our nation. My response on that was, although I didn't agree with everything Charlie Kirk believed in or stood for, I recognized his importance to the youth of this country, that he was a gift to many, including this young man. May he rest in peace. God be with his family. Pray for his soul and family. And that's what I wanted to share with you this evening, this difficult evening, especially for his family. Please pray for them. Thanks so much for watching.